Showtime. No, I'm kidding.
This is much better.
Okay, cool.
Gazillion, it looks awesome.
All right. What's up, everybody? My name's Mannun, and you're watching Witch in the Working, where we will be discussing all things witchy in and around, throughout and about, above, below, and beyond. So I thought I would change things up a little bit, and I decided to do this Witch in the Working in a outside ambiance type deal. So hopefully you guys like it. So many of us have been visited from time to time by some of the many of the Abrahamic type faiths out there. You know, they'll come knocking on your door over the weekend trying to sell their religion to you. One of the selling points is to tell you that you are guilty of sin because you were born with it. I believe they've labeled it this original sin. Well, I'm here to tell you otherwise, that as a pagan, you do not suffer from this same fate, and even prove it to you by using their own Bible. So let's get into it. Roll the intro. Okay, welcome back, everybody. So as I was saying, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about proselytization and where they come to your house, like these religious faiths, and they basically tell you that you're born of original sin and that the only way to free yourself of this original sin is to join, you know, said faith and give your soul to Jesus and whatnot. You know, that's great, whatever. But I'm going to tell you that we as pagans do not suffer from that original sin, as I mentioned earlier. So I want to go on to explain how and why and what you can use as a rebuttal against them going forward. I suggest you actually go ahead, if you don't already have one, get a Bible, and as I talk about these things, highlight them in your Bible. It's pretty much all in Genesis for the most part anyhow, in the very first chapter of the Bible. So the very first section, I don't know what you call it in the Bible. I'm not really that fluent with it. But that being said, highlight this stuff so that when they come, you can actually use this. In a sense, it's not really doing anything wrong, and it's not like fighting against that person and saying your religion's wrong or nothing like that. It's simply explaining why you, as a pagan, are not part of their original sin. So let's get started with it. Okay, so beginning in Genesis 1:26, it states the following. The Elohim said, "Let us make humanity in our own image, in the likeness of ourselves, and let them be the masters of the fish of the sea, the birds of heaven, the cattle, all the wild beasts, and all the reptiles that crawl upon earth." Elohim is a plural word, including male and female, and should properly be translated as gods or pantheon. The gods created humanity in the image of themselves. In the image of the gods, they created them. Male and female, they created them. The gods blessed them, saying to them, "Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and conquer it. Be masters of the fish of the sea, the birds of heaven, and all the living animals on the earth." Now clearly, here we're talking about the original creation of the human species, male and female. All the animals, plants, etc. have all been created in previous verses. This is before the Garden of Eden, and Yahweh is not mentioned as the creator of these people. The next chapter talks about how Yahweh, an individual member of that pantheon we spoke about, who goes about assembling his own special little botanical and zoological garden in Eden, and making his own little man to inhabit it. Yahweh God fashioned a man of dust from the soil. Then he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and thus the man became a living being. Yahweh God placed the garden in Eden, which is in the east, and there he put the man he'd fashioned. So Yahweh God caused to spring up from the soil every kind of tree, enticing to look at and good to eat, with the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the middle of the garden. Yahweh God took the man and settled him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate and take care of it. Now, this next is crucial. Note Yahweh's precise words, and this is in Genesis 2:16. The Yahweh God gave the man this admonition: "You may eat indeed of all the trees in the garden. Nevertheless, of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you are not to eat, for on the day that you eat of it, you shall most surely die." Fateful words those. We'll refer back to this admonition later. Then Yahweh decides to make a woman to go with the man. Now don't forget that the pantheon had earlier already created a whole population of men and women, male and female, who are presumably doing just fine somewhere outside of the gates of Eden. But this setup in Eden is Yahweh's own little experiment and will unfold to its own separate destiny. In Genesis 2:21, so Yahweh God made the man fall into a deep sleep, and while he slept, he took one of his ribs and enclosed it in flesh. Yahweh God built the rib he'd taken from the man into a woman and brought her to the man. Right. Man gives birth to woman. Sure he does. But that's the way the story's told here. So now both of them were naked, the man and his wife, but they felt no shame in front of each other. Well, of course not. Why should they? But take careful note of those words, as they also will prove to be significant. Now, this next part is where it starts to get interesting. Enter the serpent. Genesis 3:1. The serpent was the most subtle of all the wild beasts that Yahweh God had made. It asked the woman, "Did God really say you're not supposed to eat of the trees in the garden?" The woman answered the serpent, "We may eat the fruit of the trees in the garden. But of the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden, God said you must not eat it nor touch it under pain of death." Then the serpent said to the woman, "No, you will not die. God knows in fact that on the day that you eat, your eyes will be opened and you will be like the gods, knowing good and evil." What a remarkable statement. Your eyes will be opened and you will be like the gods, knowing good and evil. The serpent directly contradicts Yahweh. Obviously, one of them has to be lying. Which one do you suppose it is? And if the serpent speaks true, wouldn't you wish to eat of the magic fruit? Wouldn't it be a good thing to become like gods, knowing good and evil? Or is it preferable to remain in ignorance? In Genesis 3:6, the woman saw that the tree was good to eat and pleasing to the eye, and that it was desirable for the knowledge that it could give. So she took some of its fruit and ate it. She gave some also to her husband who was with her, and he ate it too. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized that they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together to make themselves loincloths. The author makes an interesting assumption here, that if you realize you're naked, you'll automatically want to cover yourself. Further implications will unfold shortly. So in Genesis 3:8, the man and his wife heard the sound of Yahweh God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and they hid from Yahweh God among the trees of the garden. But Yahweh God called to the man. "Where are you?" he asked. "I heard the sound of you in the garden," he replied. "I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." "Who told you that you were naked?" he asked. "Have you been eating of the tree I forbade you to eat?" And so the sign of the fall becomes modesty. Take note of this. The descendants of Adam and Eve will be distinguished throughout history from virtually all other people by their obsessive modesty taboos, wherein they will feel ashamed of being naked. It follows that those who feel no shame in being naked are by definition not carriers of this spiritual disease of original sin. In Genesis 3:12, the man replied, "It was the woman you put with me. She gave me the fruit and I ate it." Right. Blame the woman. Then Yahweh God asked the woman, "What is this you've done?" The woman replied, "The serpent tempted me and I ate it." So of course she blames the serpent. But just what did the serpent do that was so evil? Why, he called Yahweh a liar. Was he wrong? Let's see. In Genesis 3:21, Yahweh God made clothes out of skins for the man and his wife, and they put them on. Out of skins, this means that Yahweh had to kill some innocent animals to pander to Adam and Eve's new obsession with modesty. And now we come to the crux of the fall. Yahweh had said way back in chapter 2:17 regarding the fruit of the tree of knowledge that on the day you eat of it, you shall most surely die. The serpent, on the other hand, had contradicted Yahweh and said, "No, you will not die. God knows in fact that on the day that you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like the gods, knowing between good and evil." So, what actually happened? Who lied and who told the truth about this remarkable fruit? The answer is given in the next verse. Then Yahweh God said, "See, the man has become like one of us, with his knowledge of good and evil. He must not be allowed to stretch his hand out next and pick from the tree of life also, and eat some and live forever as we do." Get that. Yahweh himself admits that he had lied. In fact, in Yahweh's own words, the serpent spoke the absolute truth. And moreover, Yahweh tells the rest of the pantheon that he intends to evict Adam and presumably Eve as well, to keep them from gaining immortality to go with their newly acquired divine knowledge, to prevent them, in other words, from truly becoming gods. So, who in this story comes off as a benefactor of humanity and who comes off as a tyrant? The serpent never lied. In Genesis 3:23, so Yahweh God expelled him from the Garden of Eden to till the soil from which he had been taken. He banished the man, and in front of the Garden of Eden he posted the cherubs and the flames of a flashing sword to guard the way to the tree of life. So that's it for the fall. But the story of Adam and Eve doesn't end there. In Genesis 4:1, the man had intercourse with his wife Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. She gave birth to a second child, Abel, the brother of Cain. Now Abel became a shepherd and kept flocks, while Cain tilled the soil, while Abel for his part brought the firstborn of his flock and some of their fat as well. Yahweh looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but he did not look with favor on Cain and his offering, and Cain was very angry and downcast. Well, why shouldn't he be? Both brothers brought forth their first fruits of offerings, but Yahweh rejected the vegetables and only accepted the blood sacrifice. This was to set a gruesome precedent. Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let us go out," and while they were in the open country, Cain set on his brother and Abel and killed him. Accursed and marked for fratricide, Cain left the presence of Yahweh and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. We can assume that the phrase "left the presence of Yahweh" implies that Yahweh's a local deity and not omnipresent. Now, Eden, according to Genesis 2:14, was situated at the source of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, apparently right where Lake Van is now in Turkey, east of Eden. Therefore, would probably be along the shores of the Caspian Sea, right in the Indo-European heartland. Cain settled in there among the people of Nod and married one of the women of that country. Here, for the first time, is specifically mentioned the other people, who are not of the lineage of Adam and Eve, i.e. the pagans. So let's look at this story from another viewpoint. There we were, around 6,000 years ago, living in our little farming communities around the Caspian Sea in the land of Nod, when this dude with a terrible scar comes stumbling in out of the sunset. He tells us this bizarre story about how his mother and father had been created by some god named Yahweh and put in charge of a beautiful garden somewhere out west, and how they had gotten thrown out for disobedience after eating some of the landlord's forbidden magic fruit of enlightenment. He tells us of murdering his brother, as the gods of his parents would only accept blood sacrifice, and of receiving that scar as a mark so that all would know him as a fratricide. The poor guy's really a mess psychologically, obsessed with guilt. He's also obsessively modest, insisting on wearing clothes even in the hottest summer, and he has a hard time with our penchant for skinny dipping in the warm inland sea. He seems to believe that he's tainted by the sin of his parents' disobedience, that is in his blood somehow, and will continue to contaminate his children and his children's children. One of our healing women takes pity on the poor sucker and marries him. Cain had intercourse with his wife, and he conceived and gave birth to Enoch. He became the builder of a town, and he gave the town the name of his son Enoch. With both of their first sons not turning out very well, Adam and Eve decided to try again. Adam had intercourse with his wife, and she gave birth to a son whom she named Seth. A son was also born to Seth, and he named him Enosh. This man was the first to invoke the name of Yahweh. Now, it doesn't mention here where Seth's wife came from. Another woman from Nod, possibly, or maybe someone from another Neolithic community downstream in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley. But her folks also cannot be of the lineage of Adam and Eve, and must also be counted as the other people. But whatever happened to Adam? After all, way back there in the chapter of Genesis 2:17, warning Adam about the magic fruit of knowledge, Yahweh had told him that on the day you eat of this fruit, you shall surely die. So when did Adam die? Adam lived for 800 years after the birth of Seth and became the father of sons and daughters. In all, Adam lived for 930 years. Then he finally died. Hey, that's pretty good. 900 and some odd years isn't bad for a man who's been told he's going to die for the next day. Well, the story goes on, and maybe next time the witnesses come to visit, I'll tell more of it. But suffice it to say that those of us who are not of Semitic descent, not of the lineage of Adam and Eve, cannot share in the original sin that comes with the lineage. Being that the Bible is the story of that lineage of Adam and Eve's descendants and their special relationship with their particular God, Yahweh, it follows that this is not the story of the rest of us. We may have been Cain's wife's people or Seth's wife's people or some other people over the hill and far away, but whichever people the rest of us are, as far as the Bible is concerned, we are the other people, and so we are continually referred to throughout history as that. Later, books of the Bible are filled with admonitions to the followers of Yahweh to learn not the ways of the pagans, with detailed descriptions of exactly what it is we do, such as erect standing stones and sacred poles, worship in sacred groves, and practice divination and magic, and worship the sun, moon, stars, and the Queen of Heaven. You must not behave as they do in Egypt, where once you lived. You must not behave as they do in Canaan, where I am taking you. You must not follow their laws. Leviticus 18:3. For Yahweh, as he so clearly emphasizes, is not the God of the pagans. We have our own lineage and our own heritage, and our tale is not told in the Bible. We were not made like clay figurines by a male deity out of dust from the soil. We were born of our mother the earth and have evolved over eons in her nurturing embrace. All of us in our many diverse tribes have creation myths and legends of our origins and history. Some of these tales may even be actually true, like the descendants of Adam and Eve. Many of us also have stories of great floods, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and other cataclysms that wiped out whole communities of our people, wherein I alone survived to tell the tale. Nearly all of our ancestral tribes, and especially those of us who today are reclaiming our own pagan heritage, lack that peculiar obsessive body modesty that seemed to be a hallmark of the original sin alluded to in the story of the fall. We can be naked and unashamed. Why? Our goddess even tells us, as a sign that you are truly free, you should be naked in your rights, not being born into sin. We have no need of salvation and no need of a Messiah to redeem our sinful souls. Neither heaven nor hell is our destination in the afterlife. We have our own various arrangements with our own various deities. The Bible is not our story. We have our own stories to tell, and they are many and diverse. In a long life, you may get to hear many of them. May you live long and prosper. Okay. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Witch in the Working. Please leave some comments in the comments below if you have anything you need to say or add to the story or any questions or anything. Like I said, I recommend you grab the Bible and maybe highlight these things so the next time the people come to your house, you can show them why you're not part of their original sin. So listen, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it so much, give it a thumbs down. Regardless, please subscribe and click on that little bell to remind you of future episodes to come. And please invite and bring all your friends over too and have them subscribe also. So listen, blessed be. It was great with you guys. I love you guys and gals, and I'll talk to you guys next episode. See you later.